The Lady Who Refused the Season. Chapter 1. The Declaration. Lady Beatrice Fenwick had made up her mind. This in itself was not unusual. Beatrice had been making up her mind since the age of 3, when she informed her nursemaid that she would wear the blue ribbons and not the pink. At 12, she decided that Latin was preferable to embroidery. At 17, she declared she would rather read Gibbon than attend her first London ball. But this decision was of a far more serious nature. She would not marry, not this season, not ever. The declaration came on a grey Tuesday in March as the first crocuses dared to show their faces at Fenwick Hall. Beatrice stood before the mirror in her bedchamber, dark hair unbound, dressing gown a careless spill of cream-coloured linen. Her mother, Lady Fenwick, sat perched on a chaise with the expression of a woman who had just been told Christmas was cancelled. "I beg your pardon," said Lady Fenwick. "I will not participate in the season," Beatrice repeated. "Not in London, not in Bath, not in any of the dreary assemblies and balls. I am not going." Lady Fenwick pressed a hand to her chest. "Beatrice, you are 22. I am aware. You have already refused 3 perfectly eligible offers." "Perfectly eligible," Beatrice agreed. Lord Pemberton was 63, deaf in one ear and smelled of wet dog. Sir William Ashworth had the personality of a turnip, and Mr. Robert Greaves proposed because his mother told him to. I should have made him miserable, and he would have made me comatose. Lady Fenwick closed her eyes. "You are impossible. I am practical. You are stubborn, ungrateful, and deliberately difficult. Those as well." Beatrice smiled, a quick, bright flash that softened the sharp lines of her face. She was not a conventional beauty. Her features were too strong, her chin too determined, her dark eyes too keenly intelligent. But when she smiled, there was something compelling about her, something that made men look twice and then look away, unsettled. Lady Fenwick rose, silk skirts rustling. "Your father has spent a great deal of money on this season. Then he should have consulted me first. He is your father. He does not need to consult you on matters of your future." "My future," Beatrice said quietly, "is my own." Silence fell between them, heavy with years of the same argument. Lady Fenwick loved her daughter, but she loved her according to the rules of their world, which dictated that a woman's highest achievement was a good marriage. "What do you intend to do instead?" her mother asked. "I intend to be useful. I have been corresponding with Mrs. Elizabeth Fry about her work at Newgate. I want to open a small school on the estate for the tenants' children. I want to write pamphlets, essays, something of substance. I cannot do any of that, shackled to a husband who expects me to pour his tea and produce an heir every year until my body gives out." Lady Fenwick went pale. "You have been reading radical pamphlets again." "I have been reading the newspapers. They are quite radical enough on their own." The older woman turned to the window, looking out at the drive, the ancient oaks, the first hint of green returning to the fields. "You do not know what you are refusing. Marriage is not only about duty. There is love, companionship, the joy of building a life with someone who sees you and chooses you anyway." "I have seen no evidence of such a thing." "Because you have not looked. Because it does not exist." Beatrice crossed the room and placed her hands on her mother's shoulders. "I am not angry with you, Mamma, but I will not pretend to be something I am not. I will not simper and dance and display myself like a prize heifer. I am a person. I have decided what I want." Lady Fenwick looked at her daughter for a long moment. Then, to Beatrice's surprise, her eyes filled with tears. "You are so like your grandmother," she whispered. "I will take that as a compliment. You may take it however you like. You always do." Lord Fenwick was, as predicted, not pleased. He was a large man, broad-shouldered and florid-faced, with a booming laugh and a temper that could shake chandeliers. He had built Fenwick Hall's fortunes through shrewd investments, and he approached his children's futures with the same methodical determination. Beatrice was to make an excellent marriage. This was not a matter for debate. "She refuses," he said, staring at his wife. "She refuses. But I have already paid the deposit on the townhouse, ordered the new carriage, spoken to the Duke of Wellingford about presenting her at court." Lady Fenwick sat down heavily. "She wants to open a school for the tenants' children." Lord Fenwick rubbed his temples. "She gets this from your mother. She gets it from both of you. Beatrice is simply the unfortunate combination." He grunted. He loved his daughter fiercely, in the awkward way of men raised to believe emotion was weakness. He had thrown money at her for years, books, tutors, a riding horse, but none of it had made her more conventional. "What am I supposed to do with her?" he asked. "Perhaps try listening to her." Listening? She is not a child anymore. Perhaps we have been so busy planning her future that we forgot to ask what she wants. Lord Fenwick stared at the fire. "I want her to be happy and safe. The world is not kind to women who refuse to marry. Perhaps she does not want to be provided for. That is because she has never been poor." Lady Fenwick had no answer. She squeezed his hand, and together they sat in silence, while upstairs their eldest daughter read by candlelight and dreamed of a future that looked nothing like the one they had imagined. The season began in April, and Beatrice did not go to London. She remained at Fenwick Hall, to the scandalised whispers of the neighbourhood. Her younger sisters, Amelia and Charlotte, went in her stead. Amelia, 18 and pretty and eager to please, and Charlotte, 16, and thrilled by new gowns and the distant possibility of a handsome viscount. They left in a flurry of trunks and tears. Beatrice stood on the steps and watched the carriage go. The April sun was warm on her face, and the air smelled of fresh earth and new growth. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt a small cold knot of loneliness settling in her chest like a stone. She was alone. Not physically. The house was full of servants, and her father would return in a few days. But she had chosen a path that no one understood, and she would walk it by herself. She shook off the feeling and went to work. Her father had agreed to let her convert an unused cottage into a schoolroom. She spent the morning arranging benches, sweeping dust, setting out slates in neat rows. It was not prison reform or political pamphlets, but it was a beginning. It was as she was leaving the cottage that she saw the horse, a magnificent animal, a tall dark bay with a white star on its forehead, stood tethered to the gate. And then she saw the man. He was standing a few yards away, studying the old stone wall. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a lean, athletic build. He wore a plain dark coat and buckskin breeches, and his boots were dusty from the road. His hair, visible beneath his hat, was a deep, rich brown, curling at the nape of his neck. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, and Beatrice found herself looking into a face that was, quite unexpectedly, remarkable. Not handsome precisely, but his eyes were something else. A deep, warm grey, the colour of storm clouds before rain, holding an expression of weariness, intelligence, and something like amusement. "I beg your pardon," he said, his voice low and pleasant. "I seem to have lost my way." Beatrice straightened her shoulders. "This is private property." "So I gathered. I was looking for the road to Marston Village. My map appears to be in my other coat." "That is unfortunate." "It is. I have been riding since dawn, and my horse is tired, and I have been going in circles for the better part of an hour." He smiled, a quick, self-deprecating smile. "I am Captain Oliver Grant, late of His Majesty's Army, presently of nowhere in particular. I hope you will forgive my intrusion." Beatrice regarded him with suspicion. He was genuine, she was almost certain, but he was a stranger, and she had not survived 22 years by trusting strange men. "The nearest inn is in Marston," she said. "Continue along this lane for another mile to the crossroads, then turn left." Thank you. He tipped his hat. He turned to untether his horse, and Beatrice should have walked away. But something made her hesitate. Perhaps it was the weariness in his eyes. Perhaps it was the way he spoke to her, not as a man hoping to charm, but as one person to another. Or perhaps she was simply lonely. "Captain Grant," she said. He turned back. "Yes?" "Are you hungry?" He blinked. "I beg your pardon. Have you eaten today?" "Some bread at dawn." Bread at dawn is not sufficient. She was already walking toward the hall. "My father is away. You will join me for luncheon, and then I will have a groom show you the proper road." She heard his footsteps behind her, hesitation, then the crunch of boots on gravel. She did not turn around, but something in her chest loosened, just a little. Chapter 2. The Encounter. Captain Oliver Grant had not expected to be invited to luncheon. He had not expected to encounter anyone at all. His journey had been deliberately solitary, away from London's whispers and pitying glances. He had not spoken to another person in 3 days, and he had thought that was what he wanted. He had been wrong. The young woman who had accosted him was unlike anyone he had met. She was tall and dark-haired, with a face that might have been beautiful if she made any effort to soften it. But she did not soften. She walked with long, purposeful strides, chin lifted as though expecting the world to get out of her way. She led him to Fenwick Hall and into a small dining room. The food arrived: cold chicken, fresh bread, cheese, pickled vegetables, fruit tart, more than he had seen in weeks. "You are very kind," Oliver said. "I am not kind. I am practical. You needed food, and I had too much. Simple arithmetic." He smiled. "Arithmetic. I see. You think I am being modest? I think you are being evasive." She looked at him sharply, then laughed, a short, surprised sound. "You are direct." "I am a soldier. We learn to be." "And now you are a soldier of nowhere in particular. What does that mean?" Oliver considered. He had learned to gauge how much truth a person could stomach. Some wanted the polished version, the hero's return, the comfortable lies. Others wanted the truth. He decided Beatrice was one of the few. "It means I sold my commission. I spent 12 years fighting a war no one understands, and I came home to find the world had moved on without me. I am trying to decide what to do with the rest of my life, and so far the answer has been ride through the countryside and eat cold chicken with strange women who refuse to go to London for the season." Beatrice was silent for a moment. Then she picked up her fork. "I did not refuse to go to London. I refused to participate in the season. There is a difference." "Is there?" "The season is a meat market where young women are displayed and evaluated and sold, all under the guise of romance. I refuse to be displayed or sold." "You are against marriage, then?" "I am against marriage as it is currently practiced. Marriage is a transaction in which a woman trades her autonomy for security, her personhood for protection. I want to be my own person, answerable to no one but myself." Oliver leaned back, studying her. He had met women who spoke of independence before, young idealists who quoted Mary Wollstonecraft, but those women usually softened when confronted with reality. Beatrice, he suspected, would not soften. "I do not disagree with you," he said quietly. She looked up, surprised. "You do not?" "My parents were miserable together. They stayed married because divorce was impossible, and they made each other's lives a living hell. I have never proposed to anyone, and I do not intend to start now." Beatrice stared at him. "You are a cynic." "I am a realist. That is what I say when people call me a cynic." "Then we understand each other." They ate in silence, but it was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had recognized something familiar in each other. Finally, Beatrice set down her fork. "You said you are trying to decide what to do. What are your options? Oliver laughed. I could become a gentleman farmer, though I know nothing about farming. I could invest in trade, though I know nothing about trade. I could return to London and slowly die of boredom, or I could keep riding, never stop long enough to decide. That sounds lonely. It is. She nodded slowly. Then she rose and walked to the window. My father's estate manager retired last month. He has not yet found a replacement. The position requires someone who understands land management, tenant relations, and basic accounting. It also requires someone who does not mind being managed by a woman, because I intend to be closely involved in every decision. Oliver stared at her. Are you offering me a job? A temporary position with room and board while you decide what to do with the rest of your life. You said you know nothing about farming. Neither do I. But I am willing to learn, and I suspect you are too. Why? You do not know me. I could be a thief, a fortune hunter, a murderer. You could be, but you are not. You are a man who has seen too much and done too much and come home to find there is no place for him. I recognize that, because I feel the same way. There is no place for me either. So perhaps we can be misfits together, for a little while. Oliver opened his mouth to refuse. It was the sensible thing. But Beatrice was looking at him with those sharp, intelligent eyes, and for the first time in a very long time, he wanted to say yes. Room and board, he said slowly, and a small salary, to be negotiated with my father upon his return. And you will be closely involved in every decision. Every single one. He held her gaze. Then he extended his hand. Captain Oliver Grant, at your service, Lady Beatrice. She shook his hand, firm, decisive, nothing of the limp-wristed flutter society expected. Her palm was warm, her fingers strong, and when she smiled, it was like watching the sun break through clouds. Welcome to Fenwick Hall, Captain. I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting spring. Chapter 3. The Unravelling. The weeks that followed were, as Beatrice had predicted, interesting. Oliver threw himself into estate management with the intensity he had once brought to military campaigns. He rose at dawn, rode the boundaries, inspected fences and drainage ditches and tenant cottages. He pored over account books, consulted with the head groom and the head gardener and the cook. And every evening he met with Beatrice in the small study, and they talked. They talked about everything, crop rotation and tenant welfare and the proper way to prune an apple tree, about the war, the battles he had fought, the men he had lost, about her school, which had opened to 6 children, and her hopes for expanding it, about books and politics and the state of the nation. They did not talk about marriage or love, or the way Oliver's hand sometimes brushed against Beatrice's when they reached for the same map, or the way her eyes softened when he laughed at her dry jokes. They had agreed, implicitly, that such topics were forbidden. They were partners, not lovers. Collaborators, not sweethearts. It was sensible, it was practical, and it was slowly, inexorably, falling apart. The trouble began with a storm. It was the first week of June, and a summer thunderstorm rolled in from the west. Oliver had been out since midday, checking on a tenant whose roof had been damaged, and by the time he returned, he was soaked to the bone and shivering. Beatrice met him in the entrance hall, a lantern in her hand and fury on her face. "You are an idiot," she said. "Good evening to you too." His teeth chattered. "I see the storm has put you in a pleasant mood. You have been out in this weather for 6 hours. Do you have any idea what could have happened to you?" "I am a grown man. I do not need a nursemaid." "Clearly you do." She pulled him toward the stairs. "You will go upstairs. You will take off those wet clothes. You will get into a hot bath and sit by the fire until you stop shaking. That is an order." "You are not my commanding officer." "Tonight, I am." He followed because he was too cold to argue, and because a small, treacherous part of him liked being ordered about by a woman who looked at him as though he were both exasperating and precious. The bath was already drawn. She must have ordered it the moment she saw the storm approaching. The water was steaming hot, fragrant with lavender. When he sank into it, he groaned with pleasure. Later, wrapped in a dressing gown, he came downstairs to find Beatrice in the study. The fire was high. She sat in the armchair closest to the hearth, a book in her lap. She looked up, and her expression softened. Just a fraction, but he saw it. "Sit," she said. He sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. Rain lashed the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. "I was worried about you," Beatrice said at last, her voice softer, stripped of its sharpness. "I told myself you were a grown man capable of taking care of yourself. But I was worried. Terribly worried." Oliver looked at her. The firelight played across her face, illuminating the strong line of her jaw, the dark sweep of her lashes. She was beautiful, he realized, not in the way of debutantes, but fierce and intelligent and utterly, devastatingly real. "I am sorry," he said. "I did not mean to frighten you." "You did not frighten me. You made me angry. Fear is complicated." The word hung between them. Complicated. Yes, that was the word for what was happening. "Beatrice." Oliver leaned forward. "We need to talk about this." "There is nothing to talk about." "There is everything." He took her hand, not the brief grip of their first meeting, but something gentler. "I have spent 2 months telling myself I feel nothing beyond friendship, that I am incapable of love, that I have seen too much death to believe in romantic attachment." "Those are sensible things to tell oneself," Beatrice whispered. "They are lies." The rain fell harder. The clock struck 11. "I do not want to love you," Oliver said, his voice raw. "I have spent 12 years learning not to care. I came home because I could not bear to lose anyone else, and I swore I would never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. And yet here you are. And yet here I am." He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Falling in love with a woman who swore she would never marry. Beatrice pulled her hand from his grasp, not cruelly, but with deliberation. She stood and walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cold glass. "I meant what I said," she said quietly. "I do not want to be owned or controlled. I do not want to lose myself in someone else's identity. And I do not want children. Not to be forced to have them because it is my duty, because my husband requires an heir." "I know," Oliver said with no judgment, only understanding. Beatrice turned. Her face was wet. "If I were to marry, I would need a husband who saw me as an equal, a partner, someone who would share burdens and joys in equal measure, who would respect my mind and my ambitions." Oliver rose and crossed to stand before her. He did not touch her. Not yet. He simply stood close enough that she could feel his warmth, see the gold flecks in his grey eyes. "I have never wanted a wife as that word is usually understood," he said. "I want a partner, a collaborator, someone who will argue with me and challenge me and refuse to let me settle for less." "You are describing me." "I am describing you. I simply did not have the courage to say it aloud." The rain softened. The world held its breath. "I am still afraid," Beatrice whispered. "So am I. I do not know how to do this without losing myself. Then we will learn together." He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. "We will write our own rules, Beatrice, not society's rules. Ours." She closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. "What if we fail?" "Then we fail. But at least we will have chosen each other, freely and honestly." Beatrice opened her eyes. She thought of all her reasons to say no, all her vows about independence. And then she kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a kiss of certainty, of recognition, of two people who had found something they had not been looking for. When they broke apart, breathless, Oliver laughed. That was not in the job description. Beatrice laughed too, bright and free. I will amend it in the morning. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. Lord Fenwick returned from London in high dudgeon. The season had been a disaster. Amelia had fallen in love with a penniless poet. Charlotte wanted to become a nun. Lady Fenwick had developed a nervous twitch, and the new carriage had lost a wheel on the road to Richmond. "I am never going to London again," Lord Fenwick announced. "I would rather spend the rest of my life talking to my cows." "The cows will be pleased," Beatrice said mildly. Her father shot her a look. "Do not be impertinent. I am in no mood." Despite himself, his mouth twitched. He had missed her. "Where is this estate manager of yours? Grant, was it?" "Captain Oliver Grant. He is in the east pasture." Beatrice paused. "Papa, I need to tell you something." Lord Fenwick's eyes narrowed. He recognized the signs of unwelcome news. "What have you done?" "Nothing I regret, but I have made a decision. I am going to marry Captain Grant." Her father's complexion cycled through pink, red, and purple. "You have known this man for 3 months. I have also known myself for 22 years. I have never been more certain of anything." "You said you would never marry." "I said I would never marry according to society's rules. I meant it. I am not marrying Oliver because I need a husband. I want a partner. He sees me as I am, all of me, the difficult parts and the stubborn parts, and he loves me anyway. He has promised, explicitly and in writing, that our marriage will be a partnership of equals." "In writing?" "Our marriage contract is 27 pages. It covers finances, household management, and children. We have agreed to none, so you may stop hoping for grandchildren from me." She smiled sadly. "Amelia and Charlotte will have to carry on the family line." Lord Fenwick sank into his chair. 27 pages. "Reviewed by my solicitor. Everything is legally binding." He was silent for a long time. The clock ticked. The summer sun set, painting the sky orange and pink. Finally, he looked up at his daughter, his eyes wet. "Your mother is going to be insufferable. She has been hoping for this since you were born." "I know." "And the captain, he is a good man?" "The best I have ever known." "He loves you." "He loves me enough to sign a 27-page contract respecting my autonomy for the rest of our lives. I would say that is a significant demonstration." Lord Fenwick laughed, a rusty sound that turned into a sob. He held out his arms, and Beatrice went to him, folding into his embrace, like when she was a little girl. "I only want you to be happy," he murmured. "I know, Papa." "Then you have my blessing. 27 pages and all." The wedding took place on the first day of September, in the small chapel on the Fenwick Hall estate. It was not a grand affair. No society reporters, no towering flowers, no 100-guest list. Only family and a few close friends, gathered on a golden autumn afternoon. Beatrice wore a simple gown of cream-coloured silk, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, crowned with a wreath of late summer flowers, daisies, lavender, small white roses. She held no bouquet, but she held Oliver's hand throughout the ceremony, their fingers intertwined. Oliver wore his officer's coat, brushed and pressed. He looked nervous. She had never seen him nervous before, but his eyes never left hers. They had written their own vows. The traditional words had been struck entirely. "I promise to respect your mind, your body, and your choices," Oliver said, his grey eyes fixed on hers. "I promise to be your partner, not your master. I promise to argue with you honestly and love you fiercely, and to never ask you to be anyone other than who you are. I promise to share my life with you without losing myself in yours. Beatrice replied. I promise to be your equal, not your possession. I promise to fight beside you, not for you, and to build a future that belongs to both of us, together. The vicar pronounced them husband and wife. Oliver kissed her, gentle, reverent, and they turned to face their small congregation, hands still clasped, smiles bright as the September sun. Well, Lady Grant, Oliver murmured, using her new name for the first time. What now? Beatrice looked at him, this man who had stormed into her life like a summer squall, who had challenged her and changed her and loved her without trying to own her. She thought of the road ahead, uncertain and unmapped, full of challenges they could not yet imagine. She thought of the school she would continue to run, the pamphlets she would write, the partnership they would build, day by day, year by year. She squeezed his hand and smiled. Now, she said. We begin. The sun set over Fenwick Hall, painting the old stones in gold and rose. In the chapel, the candles flickered low. The guests departed, until only the newlyweds remained, standing before the altar. Are you afraid? Oliver asked. Terrified, Beatrice admitted. So am I. Good. She stood on her toes and kissed him, quick and sure. We will be terrified together. They walked out hand in hand into the fading autumn light. Behind them, the door swung shut on their old lives. Before them, the path stretched forward toward a future that belonged to no one but themselves. It was not the marriage society had expected. It was not safe, conventional, or easy, but it was theirs. And that, Lady Beatrice Grant had decided, was more than enough. The end. Thank you, dear reader of the Regency Gazette, for joining us in another tale of love, intrigue, and whispered ballroom secrets. If today's romance delighted you, kindly bestow a like upon this video. It helps our Gazette reach more lovers of Regency storytelling. For weekly journeys into dukes, debutantes, scandals, and slow-burning devotion, please subscribe to the Gazette